All right, founders, it is time for another pitch deck critique and review. And this time I have got 4 pitch decks. That's right, a quadruple header. You got it. I'm bringing it. This is what you wanted. Thank you to all the founders sending in your pitch decks. My apologies if I was a little late. I've been on vacation, taking a bit of time for myself, but we're going to go through these 4 pitch decks. I believe all of them are pre-seed in some form or another, and we have quite the different diversity, a variety of different pitch decks, so you can learn from the different industries if they just happen to match yours. If you are looking for your own pitch deck critique and review, please stay till the end of the video. I'll explain how you want to get that done. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang. If we met before, use the chapter markers to skip ahead to the actual pitch deck critique and reviews based on what you want to learn from. If we haven't met, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. I partnered with Startups.com to provide these pitch deck critique and reviews for all of you out there so we can learn together. I've raised over $100 million for my startups as well as other startups and startup funds. I work with a team that's raised over $750 million for startups that have gone on to raise billions, to go public, and we have a lot of success stories, and that's how we want to evaluate your pitch decks and give you that learning experience. Like I said, if you want your own pitch deck critiqued and reviewed, stay till the end of the video. If you're already part of the Startups.com community, you don't have to wait. Just contact one of us. We'll get you feedback right away. While everyone's here, do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. Happy to see your comments, respond, and would love to know what you're thinking. And if you want to see other types of content like this, and like I said, just send us your pitch deck. Happy to help you out. Let's jump into the first of our 4 pitch decks. The first pitch deck is ExchAInge. It's kind of a clever play on AI. It's a decentralized marketplace for physical AI data. Right away, when you say physical AI data, I am totally confused. And you want to avoid that on the front page. You want to explain it in a way that the investor immediately understands exactly what they're getting into. Now, you piqued my curiosity just a little bit, but I'd expand on this if you want to keep playing up the physical AI data angle. Expand somehow on this to explain it a little better. Moving to the problem slide, I appreciate that you have problem written small and to the upper left. It says here, in the $500 billion physical AI market, all the data produced generates $0 in revenue due to underutilization. Right away, I'm incredulous. I don't understand, and I don't believe you. So first, $500 billion physical AI market. I don't know what the physical AI market is. Exactly what is it? Are you saying AI creates physical things like something that I can collect or I can hold? What does that actually look like? Or are you talking about the physical servers? Not sure, but immediately you've lost me. These are going to be major question marks. And you say all the data produced generates $0 in revenue. Immediately, I'm incredulous again because I know for a fact that data creates revenue. So you're probably referring to the physical data in the AI market. One more time, lots of question marks here. Not sure where to go with this. Underutilization, exactly what does that mean? I'm looking at the bottom left here, and it says no MSP for physical AI data. Is that the problem? Is this a managed service provider for physical data? One more time, what is physical data? Then you're saying there's 56,800 gigabytes of real data that remains critical to validate and fine-tune models trained in simulation. I still don't know what physical data is. And quite frankly, 56.8 thousand gigabytes of data does not seem like a lot. Right away, this problem statement has lost me. You're probably trying to get to something, and you probably know the problem that you're talking about, and you might be an expert in this, but I do not know, and you've lost me as the investor. Therefore, the rest of the pitch deck is going to be very difficult to follow. Maybe we can find some clues in the solution. ExchAInge alleviates the data set bottleneck through a decentralized marketplace, generating exactly the types of sensor data that physical AI researchers need. Now I'm thinking this is data derived from physical places, because you're mentioning sensors here in the solution, but you don't mention sensors in the problem. That's why I'm lost. So let's think about this for a moment here. Are you saying there's data from physical sources, such as sensors, that go into training these AI models? For example, you've got Tesla, and they get sensor data from physically driving around. But your claim that none of it is monetized then would be patently false, because we know for a fact that Tesla monetizes that data. Physical AI researchers need. One more time, you're mentioning stuff in the solution that makes me believe that you're smart, you understand the problem, but you haven't explained it in a way that I understand as an investor. You could have said in your problem statement that there are X number of physical researchers that use sensors to collect data for AI that haven't been able to monetize it yet, leaving $1 trillion opportunity on the table. You see how I added the size, scope, and severity of the problem. Now we empower teams to train, validate, benchmark, govern, and monetize AI data sets and models by providing secure, scalable access to robotics data. Now you mentioned robotics. You didn't even mention robotics in the problem. Now I'm even more lost. Is this where the sensors come from? Turning idle assets into trusted fuel for next generation machine intelligence. This is an example of a very smart solution looking for a problem I don't understand, and we need to pause right here. If you lose the investor at the problem, does not matter how smart your solution is. You're going to lose them completely from the pitch deck. That's the reason you have to nail the problem statement. You want size, who has the problem, how many there are, scope, why does the problem exist, how pervasive is it, and the severity of the problem. What's it costing people not to solve it in dollars and cents? Because you did not set up the problem correctly, doesn't matter how smart your solution sounds. I don't see any connection, and that is a single greatest peeve that investors have, is that when the problem and solution do not align, typically what happens is because you have a solution looking for a problem. You didn't start with the problem and say, let's create a solution. You came up with a really great solution, and you're probably very smart at doing so, but now you're shoehorning into the problem to try and get investors' attention. That is not going to work for you. So this deck is not going to work right out of the gates, and you should all go back to the problem statement and start again. But let's keep looking at how it works and try to find some more information. So we got data providers. All right, so data providers, I'm thinking robotics sensors. They monetize idle sensor data in minutes, simply set the price, handle the rest. I don't understand. What I'm thinking is that you're going to have to explain where this data comes from. So is it robotics? Is it sensors? Where is it from? And you say, we've collected the data. So they collect the data, we put it on the exchange marketplace, and then AI developers start getting that data, or they start buying it for the models. That's what I'm thinking is happening. But you haven't explained all this in the problem and the solution for us to really understand the necessary need for all this here. But I'm beginning to understand sort of how this is going to work. So you're in the right direction pointing it, but how you're communicating it is not coming across properly. You say value proposition here and how it makes money. This is actually your biz model slide. So you want to explain this is the biz model. Your entire pitch deck is the value proposition. But you're saying you're going to charge transaction fees. That makes sense for a marketplace. Premium data access plans, API access fees. Revenue example, you don't need this. You are pre-revenue. This is not going to move the needle for investors. I do not care about this. What I want is a sentence up at the top, one big headline summary sentence right at the top saying how we make money is through transaction fees, premium data access plans, and API access fees, and then put a menu list of what you're going to charge there. And that gives the investor an understanding, and make sure that all these pricing, these revenue sources are battle tested. Value creation promise. I do not know what this is. That is not a term that's used. So don't put this in there. Get rid of it. Let's take a look at what happens. I think this is more of a how it works. Before exchange, data owners earn, and after exchange. This probably could go into your problem to explain it a lot better, as I'm not going to get to this slide to read it to even understand the problem because the first slide was so poor. So begin incorporating this into the problem statement and say, in the beginning or in the current state, data's unused, there's X amount of this, it costs them that, etc. Here's how many users there are. And then this would probably be your solution right here, is that after we put in our solution, we have a decentralized marketplace. You can make money on your data. So these slides need to be combined. I'm totally confused at this point in time. I'm trying to understand and work through your deck. The market size. This slide should have been your third slide, problem, solution, market. Let's take a look. 500 billion. Global physical AI data market is worth 500 billion. Once again, I'm thinking that this has to do with sensor data for robotics is worth 500 billion. That seems really small in relation to what we're trying to do. But you're looking at the target slice of enabling companies to monetize from 200 million to 300 million. I don't understand this math here. We estimate that data sets published for free by the 80 plus companies we've spoken with are worth it. You're giving me a story of what you've done as far as traction is concerned, but you're not explaining the market. You want to explain the TAM, how many users are there multiplied by the price equals your TAM. That's what I need to understand. This is a top-down analysis. 500 billion, where did that number come from? I don't know the math in which you're using to get to this. On top of which, you get into our beachhead is a 5 billion data set opportunity, and you are saying you're enabling them to monetize from 200 to 300 million. That's actually your beachhead. So this is confusing right here. You've thrown all this on the slide. Smart manufacturing, you've broken it up. But since I don't understand, don't put any of that in there. This would probably be better in your go-to-market in terms of this is how we're going to tackle smart manufacturing first, warehousing and logistics, robotics, and surveillance. Looking down here, Jensen Huang notes that physical AI revolutionized $50 trillion manufacturing logistics industry. You say $50 trillion here, but $500 billion up there. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, if Jensen Huang of NVIDIA fame is talking about the physical manufacturing logistics industry, physical AI, you have to explain it to the investors. I'm not discounting your market in terms of physical AI. I just don't know what it is. And I'm guessing that most investors aren't going to understand. If you're able to give a unique insight to investors and say, did you know that all these companies need physical AI data? In other words, AI data that's derived from physical sources, such as sensors on robots, then investors are going to say, well, yeah, duh, that makes a lot of sense. And you're saying that a lot of that could be sold after it's collected. That would make sense for investors. But once again, you're seeing, because it is not concise, you lack clarity, I don't know exactly what the problem and the solution is. I'm lost. I'm seeing that smart people like Jensen Huang, and like I said, you're probably smart out there as a founder right now, but you're communicating in such a poor fashion. Investors are not going to understand. They're going to take for granted that you're smart. Jensen Huang knows what he's talking about. But if they don't understand what the opportunity is, why would they trust you with their money? Let's continue on. Attraction and validation. You have a fully functional MVP developed and tested internally. So you've conducted 80 interviews with industry experts. Okay, that's great. You have 50% respondents said they are willing to provide physical data for free. That, you're starting to push that there. 8 institutions have expressed interest in buying data sets to accelerate AI training. Organic interest from robotics community, smart manufacturing, and Internet of Things forum. So you're not giving me actual battle-tested metrics. If you have an MVP out there, you're just telling me that you've talked to people. So I'm not going to believe your MVP is out there. Get your MVP out there and start having people use it. We have X amount of users and we're growing X% week over week in terms of the data that's sent up. It's developed and tested internally. This is not going to be enough traction for something like this. If you're saying that you've already spoken to these companies, well, get out there, go from internal to external and start to show investors. That's going to be the best thing for your company right now. Competitive landscape. This is all out of order. Traction should happen one of the last slides after your team. But let's look at this. ExchAInge, Ocean Protocol, and IOTX. And you're saying that they don't do any of this stuff. Then they're not competition. How are we supposed to do a competitive analysis if you're putting competitors that do nothing in relation to yours? You haven't explained what physical AI data is. Therefore, I don't know if physical data is going to be important to these other types of startups. I don't know who they are. Very confused. Privacy preserving, what does that mean? Exactly. How are you preserving privacy? How is that important to the customer? AI-specific marketplace, missing none, tokenized incentives. You're now adding blockchain and tokenization here in the competitive landscape, and you haven't mentioned it anywhere else in your pitch deck. So you've added a new concept, and therefore you're going to confuse the investor even more, including cross-chain compatible and DAO governance. You could have said our solution is to create a marketplace on the blockchain as a decentralized autonomous organization that allows people to sell and exchange their physical AI data for trust. You see how it all goes back to the problem, solution, and the market sizing slide. Here's the roadmap. We don't need a roadmap if you got traction. We do not need this. A roadmap is going to come later when investors are looking for due diligence. Take this out because you're just being hopeful in terms of we are getting funding and here's the roadmap. It changes all the time. I don't believe in roadmaps until an investor says, if I give you $500,000, what are you going to do with it? What's your roadmap? Team, this shows me that you're very smart founders and you're going for a moonshot, which I totally appreciate. So we've got the CSO, CEO, and this is all super small and I can't read this. So founder of an RWA tokenization platform, P2P exchange. You've got experience, which is great. You got your CTO, blockchain data infrastructure. I'm going to want to learn to read that. The team's pretty good in terms of the potential that I see, but you want to add more bullet points because you want to start to really prove out the domain expertise, and this is how we're going to win. And don't forget your headline summary sentence. We have a team with 40 years plus experience that have developed other platforms such as this and gone public or raised funding. I don't know what it is, but you're missing your summary headline sentence up above. Funding. We are seeking $200,000 in angel investments to develop the entire platform. land our first paid data transaction, and improve early revenue traction. Pre-seed is pretty much where you are. And I like the fact that you're explaining and you're very upfront with what you're wanting to do. Develop the entire platform. You already did that in terms of your MVP. You want to get your MVP out there. So you want to say, I want to launch our MVP and start getting first paid transactions, early revenue traction. In terms of what time frame. So you're saying you're going to do this in 18 months, 12 months. What's it going to do? You got use of funds here, inflection points unlocked. This is all moved. Forget this, okay? We don't need to see all this. Get this in the rest of your deck, but we just want to see this statement. I appreciate the headline statement and the use of funds here. Make sure you add time frame. And here's the final slide. I'm pretty sure you're super smart. I'm pretty sure there is a market here. It makes sense. If I'm reading this correctly, there's data to be monetized from physical sensors out there as part of robotics, and that would be valuable. And so if you've got people collecting this data, they can put it onto a marketplace and sell it. Makes sense to me. It's just not in your pitch deck. An investor is not going to spend time to try and figure all this stuff out. Your pitch deck is coming across as you haven't figured out how to communicate it. So go back through all our videos and begin from scratch and explain the problem and the solution very succinctly, and you should be okay for the rest of the pitch deck. Furthermore, if you do have an MVP, put it in the hands of users. Nothing stops you from doing that right now. You've already interviewed people, talked to people. They should be playing around with your MVP. Unless the MVP is not usable, it's not fully developed, at which point in time, you are not speaking the truth in your pitch deck. You do have an MVP, get traction on the MVP, show the investors that you've got people, users, actual possible paying customers playing around with it, and that's going to help you raise so much more. That's it for this one. Let's jump into the next pitch deck. This next pitch deck is going to be a pretty quick review because it doesn't follow the same format that we need. And I'm putting this up here to show everybody else, startup founders, why we need to follow a standard format, a problem, solution, market size, all those slides, how it works, business model, etc. This pitch deck is trying to raise $525,000, and it's a sort of a retail, it's an offline business. It's a unique model, and I thought we can take a look at it to all learn together. Right away on the cover, the doors are open. What doors? What does this actually mean? This means nothing to the investor. Welcome to the Karapire Cartel. Exactly what are we looking at? Straightway Speed Shop. Speed Shop is the only thing that I can understand what this deck is all about. Plus, I got a car. Put a description of what the opportunity is. Just put Karapire Cartel. We fix cars. We're a speed shop. We do something like that. Put it on the cover because you're trying to be clever. You want to be clear and concise, not clever on your front page. Right away, we get an executive summary. Investors don't want to see an executive summary unless you got major traction, you got bullet point highlights. Basically, what you're doing is you're trying to pitch in here, which could be broken down in the individual slides. You have a revolutionary convergence of traditional automotive performance with cutting-edge technology. I don't know what this means. Are you building cars? Are you fixing cars? Are you fine-tuning cars? Are you enhancing cars, augmenting cars, customizing cars? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. That's why you start off with a problem. You want to start off with a problem with size, scope, and severity. Who has the problem? Why does the problem exist? How many people are there? And what's the severity of the problem? What's the market opportunity in terms of the money that's being left on the table if the problem's not being solved? First mover advantage. Everyone says they're first mover advantage. Proven AGI platform. You're basically claiming that you have artificial general intelligence. I just don't believe that. AI-powered diagnostics is a lot more believable. Zero trust security. What does that mean? You say that it's a framework ensuring customer data protection with comprehensive audit trails. I don't even know what your startup does, so why would I know why data protection is so important? This tells me it's some type of software and you got codes, so maybe you're a repair shop. I do not know. I'm totally confused. Therefore, this executive summary is not going to move the needle with investors. Basically, investors are going to check out if you're approaching solid, strategic, professional investors. We don't look at these types of slides. Now, let me stop for a moment and say that every founder has a better than 0% chance of raising funds at any stage. Most likely, that means that you're going to do an FFA round, friends, family, and associate investors. Because I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, a professional institutional investor, such as a micro VC or an angel professional one that's used to investing in hyper-growth startups for a 10, 20, 50x return, they are not going to understand this deck and they're not going to be anywhere near it. If you're using this deck to meet someone and personally connect with them, build a relationship, and then you say, all right, I have an investment opportunity. They say, sure, send it to me. And you send them this deck. Well, then maybe it's going to work. But as an outreach, introductory screener deck, this does not work. I have lots of videos that explain, once again, that you need to go through problem, solution, market size, how it works, business model, competition, go-to-market strategy, team traction, the ask, and then your end slide. That's really what it boils down to. That's why I have these videos if you want to approach the investors that we're used to working with. But if not, then take my advice with a grain of salt. But for all of you other founders out there, this is not the format that is going to be useful for raising any type of money. Now we got the market opportunity, and this is a top-down analysis. Total addressable market, 1.08 billion. Doing what? I still don't know what this business does. If you're telling me that you are going to be doing auto upgrades, such as right here, this is the estimated revenue. Is this the total market? Not sure. This might be projection stuff. No blockchain AI integration. What does blockchain AI integration have to do with auto upgrades? So totally confused. Overall, we don't understand. This looks like just a regular company that does automotive upgrades. How you are adding all this in there, you haven't explained it. And it just seems like you're throwing technology against the wall, seeing what sticks. And sure, you might have a vision for how this works, but it's not coming across. It's not clear in this pitch deck. Service portfolio and business model. KC Speed Shop operate with 8 distinctive revenue streams. Immediately, you're losing me when you say 8 distinctive revenue streams. But let's keep looking. Each leveraging different aspects of our integrated AGI platform. Did you know that companies have not figured out AGI yet? ChatGPT, I use it all the time. That's not AGI. OpenAI is not even close. Nobody is close to it, and they've raised billions of dollars, and you're saying that you've already got this, you're going to be using it. This doesn't make sense, and I'm incredulous as the investor. And you got blockchain vehicle passports. What does blockchain have to do with torque and upgrades? You've lost me. You have to go back to the drawing board, and this is what I'm going to say. You have to go to idea validation. Let me stop and explain what idea validation is. That's when you go out and you say, is the problem valid, and is our solution valid? So you want to go out and say, all right, people who want to upgrade their cars and, augmented torque performance, do they want a solution with blockchain? Do they want all the solutions that you're talking about? Does artificial intelligence solve any of the stuff that they're talking about? What are their pain points? And I'm not saying there isn't any. There might be. You might have a very legitimate reason to do so. Prove me wrong. I just don't see it right now. Idea validation allows you to go out and say, if this is the problem, who has it? Let me understand it. And if I had this solution, would they actually want to buy it and change the behavior? That's what you have to prove to the investor. And that's precisely what you have not done in this pitch deck so far. Now we get to financial projections. I don't believe these financial projections because I don't know what the problem is. You got 8 revenue sources. I don't know if you have any historical data that's going into this, but it looks like you've got a dream. And of course, your profit analysis goes up and to the right. Anybody can fill out a spreadsheet to make it look this way. And that's why investors, if you're pre-revenue, do not care about your financial projections. Remove this slide. You don't need to have it in here. Now we got technology integration. I don't know why you need the technology. And you're saying AGI, don't believe you. This is a lot of AI washing to sound super smart. You haven't explained how you're doing it or even proven that it's possible. You got implementation roadmap. As I've said in the previous things, we don't care about roadmaps. We only care after we start doing due diligence, what you're going to do. You haven't explained what state your startup is in, what state the software is in. I saw a screenshot. I'm going to give you that. But you're not explaining what state it's in. Therefore, I don't care what an implementation roadmap is. Investment requirements, and you're saying we got equipment, technology platform. You're raising $525,000. You're not going to do anything with AI with $525,000 unless you're already building it, proving out with revenue, which you have not explained up to this moment. Here's a summary of opportunity. And once again, this is not going to give any impetus or motivate the investor anymore because the rest of the pitch deck has been very confusing. Let me just say, I appreciate all founders who've sent me their pitch decks. I appreciate you out there taking the courage to go and say, this is our pitch deck, critique it, rip it apart. A lot of founders are very courageous for doing so. I appreciate all of you. In this case, what occurs to me is that you want to build a cool business working on cars, and you thought, let's just add a whole bunch of AI and fancy words to our pitch deck to see if we can get investors interested. It's not going to happen. You'd be best served by starting a very strong offline business. Go out and prove that you got X amount of customers, you're doing a great thing, and start to integrate technology solutions as you go and tell the investor we can improve our revenue bit by bit. I know many companies that are service companies, they're general contractors, or they do construction or manufacturing, and they're doing it all manually. And then they start integrating technology and they start building little programs, AI agents, widgets, and everybody gets excited because their margins go down, their profitability goes up, they become more efficient, they don't need as much staff. That's precisely what you can do. I don't see a staff or a team slide on this. I don't know who's running it. I don't have confidence in this. So go out and prove it. Go work on some cars, do your thing, and get the domain expertise and start to grow organically and ease into the fundraise. Because right now, with you just throwing everything against the wall, it's not going to work. Go back to idea validation. I've got lots of videos. We've got a full course on idea validation bootcamp here on Startups.com. You can go check that out. But beyond that, this pitch deck is not going to be successful raising money. I can pretty much guarantee that. But chin up, stay encouraged, keep hacking at it, because like I said, every founder has a better than 0% chance of raising funding and building an almighty unicorn. And that just might be you. If you have to start somewhere, this is as good of any place to start. Good for you. Keep going. Next, we have a pre-seed deck that is looking to raise $4 million, $4 million. And it is really an impact pitch deck. So this is an impact business, which changes the complexion and the approach just a little bit, but it's called BEElx. And we've got an introduction. You don't have to have that in there. Busy creatively. I don't know what that means. That's a question mark. So get rid of that. That's just marketing slogan. You've got proprietary AI-led local exchange trading platform, empowering communities with sustainable, predictable incomes. I have no idea what you're doing. There's a lot of words there. Change this sentence to be a lot more clear. If you've got AI-led local exchange to help communities create sustainable incomes, great. But what are they trading? There's so many question marks in here. We'll get into more details. I appreciate that you want to make an impact, but this is going to be a tough one to really sell to investors, and you want to be careful about how much AI washing that you do. But let's explore this deck a little more. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Problem statement: global poverty epidemic. This is one of those statements that you want to be very careful about. I know you probably care, but you are not going to go solve the global poverty epidemic. Nobody will. I get that you want to try and do that. You want to end poverty, 2015 Millennium Development Goals. We're already outdated. 2015, we're in 2025, so I don't know what the relevance is. We're going to say that half the world's population lives with acute or low income deficiency. That is a given. 133 million Nigerians suffer multidimensional poverty. All right, that's a significant problem. Rising global catastrophes and AI displacement worsen the crisis. What is AI displacement? I don't know what that is. I don't actually believe you, and therefore you've lost me at this problem statement. Current programs have failed to deliver sustainable solutions. Yes, that's a given. So this is an example of an important problem. I'm not invalidating how important this problem is, but it's a problem that no investor is going to believe any founder is going to solve with one startup. What you want to do is pick a segment of this problem, and you want to be very clear on who has the problem, what is the size of the problem, the scope of the problem, why it exists, and the severity. Let's workshop this just for a little bit because I love impact startups. You could say 133 million Nigerians suffer multidimensional poverty. Why? Why do they suffer? Because they're unbanked, they don't have access to income opportunities, they don't know how to get jobs, they're underskilled, they need to be upskilled or reskilled in the age of AI, and you want to explain what's not working with the current programs, with current government programs failing an X%, costing the government $30 billion a year to try and fix the problem. You see how I created size, scope, and severity in a way that investors will understand. And you need to nail this problem because no investor, impact investor, or donor is ever going to give you money until you can clearly narrow down the problem and articulate in a way that they say, okay, you understand it, you have a unique insight, and therefore I've got hope that you can go solve that. But if you go out and say the world is facing a poverty epidemic and people are poor and we're going to fix that, no investor is going to believe you. And that's just the reality of it. Even if you did have the solution for it, the investor still wants you to start somewhere so you can establish a beachhead, dominate a particular type market, solve the problem, and then expand from there. That's why they call it land and expand. So you really need to go back and re-engineer this problem statement to be more focused so that the investor understands. Solution overview. Global poverty needs local exchange trading innovation. Once again, I don't know what local exchange trading innovation is. And because we don't know the problem very clear in terms of where you're focusing, this is going to be difficult. An algorithm-led LX trading for financial inclusion and poverty eradication. If you want to have financial inclusion, that should have been in the problem. Predictable, sustainable incomes through consistent high profits. So you're trading money. I don't know how this works altogether. Democratization of money, community empowerment, agile fund for dependable global emergencies capabilities. Once again, you're saying a lot of buzzy words that really don't mean anything to the investor. You're saying things that may sound smart and inspiring, but they're not specific enough for the investor. You have the same problem as the previous deck. They have not done idea validation to articulate your problem and your solution, and therefore you're going to lose the investors. Market opportunity, AI-driven poverty solutions. 60 autonomous markets with 4 billion people in need. We just talked about 133 million Nigerians, 4 billion, that's global. US 1.8 trillion. Aid tokens. B offers innovative alternative, potential ending poverty in 20 years through predictable income. Nobody believes that. And now you're introducing things such as aid token. So this is blockchain, innovative alternative. You haven't explained to me what that innovation is. 1.8 trillion. What is this exactly? How is that your market? I need to know in terms of how many people are going to be in your market times what they would spend with you on an average annual basis equals your TAM. And then your SAM is the segment in which you're going to be focusing, and your SOM is what you're realistically going to be targeting. Or you can say, we have this total market, but we're going to focus on this segment to eventually grow us into that market. This hasn't been thought through well enough yet to make a viable argument for investors. How it works, this is where I'm getting even more frustrated, because you're saying poverty vaccine delivery. How does that have to do with trading, with tokens, with jobs, with poverty? This makes no sense. So you've mentioned vaccines, and now you're talking about investments and fixed returns. All confusing. You don't know how this works. You want to be creating a step-by-step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps maximum to how you're solving the problem by first establishing the problem and explaining the solution. Business model, predictable revenue streams, multiple investment streams. That doesn't tell me anything. Investors take 70%, agile funds take 12%, operators take 18%. I don't know what that means because I don't know what your startup does. You talked about vaccines on the last slide, and now you're talking about investors and agile funds. It makes no sense to me. Go-to-market strategy, scale impact. AI-driven platform for efficient trading. That's not a go-to-market strategy. That's how it works. Market trials for parameter optimization. Market trials for who? How does that actually get us to customers? Minimum number to play, 8,191. I don't understand the number. What does that number mean? Competitive advantage, cooperation over competition. We have a unique culture of cooperation, collaboration. It's redundant. You already said that. Game-changing community and business initiative. What's the community? I don't understand. Share of population living in extreme poverty. That's not a competitive advantage. You're just talking about the market conditions. This slide doesn't make sense. Team and funding. Unusual team culture and funding strategies. That means nothing. You're looking for 4 million seed fund. For what? What are you going to do? If you're already seed, that implies that you're doing revenue. You've already got signs of product market fit. I don't even see a team there. I don't know who's behind this startup. Conclusion, summary, B offers science-driven solutions. We're talking science now. Maybe that has to do with vaccines. We don't know how this relates to a global poverty epidemic. Call to action, partnership opportunities, and investment potentials. One more time, I'm going to always encourage founders in taking the risk and sending me their pitch deck. But this pitch deck makes no sense. The business is not thought through, needs to go back to idea validation. It's probably one of the more egregious examples out there. For all you other founders out there, if you're trying to raise money for impact investing, you want to make sure that you not only care about the problem, but it's a segment of the problem that you can actually solve. And that's where this pitch deck lost me. You lost me. There's big dreams, and I know you might have really big hearts, and you might have experienced the problem yourself. You're watching it, and the world needs dreamers like you who want to go out and make a difference. But investors need to make money, or at least know their investment opportunities are going to be protected and break even if impact is important. You have not thought through your business. You have not thought through exactly how you're going to communicate, what that looks like. You haven't gone out and validated the problem. You haven't created a solution that can even be validated that makes any sense whatsoever. So go back to the drawing board. Keep your heart, keep the vision alive in what you want to do in making an impact around the world, but learn the fundamentals and the basics of business. I would even suggest writing a business plan. If you have access to ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT what type of business would solve this type of problem and start talking with it. Take an AI first approach, and that's going to help you get the education for the basic foundations so that you can go out and become the founder that you want to aspire to be. Here is the last pitch deck. It's HelloFellow. And I'm going to say out of all the pitch decks, this one is the best one. It has the most that we can work with. This pitch deck is trying to raise 200 to 500K in terms of investment, and we're looking at pre-seed. This pitch deck is well thought through in terms of good information, and there are a lot of great things that I like about it. We can all learn from this pitch deck, and I'm going to show you how you can improve it by working through each slide. First of all, what I like is that we're very straightforward in what we're trying to do. Connecting solo travelers to church communities abroad. It's just really straightforward. Now, the fact that you've got this in the biggest font, I'd question it. I'd probably put your logo as the biggest and then have this tagline right here. And then travel app for Christian women, solo travelers struggling with spiritual isolation. Now you're redundant. So I would pick one or the other. You can just combine this and say connecting solo female travelers to church communities abroad. It's very straightforward in what you're doing. And I like the fact that it is niche. With so many other apps out there, social media, I know you can get a market because the spiritual community and that industry can be very lucrative. Not to say you want to make money from this, because if you're taking a ministry approach, but you can also justify this with the type of revenue to make sure that this business can be funded. A lot of good things happening right now on this first slide. So we're headed in the right direction. Kudos to you. Now we got the problem statement. And what I like, problem is up and to the left. And we got a summary sentence up at the top. We've got 22.4 million U.S. Christian women, solo travelers, spend $3 billion a year annually on travel companion apps and spiritual wellness apps combined to help ease spiritual isolation abroad due to lack of in-person fellowship opportunities. There's a lot to like here, but your numbers don't make sense. I'm going to believe, sure, 22.4 million Christian women travel around, but these women do not spend $3 billion annually, anything related. That's an incredulous number. I know what you're trying to do, and kudos to you once again. The size of the problem and who has it. 22.4 million U.S. Christian women. Great. The scope of the problem and severity, you want to say if you're connecting them abroad that they cannot find opportunities to connect with churches or spiritual communities around the world. That's all you really have to say. And you could talk about the opportunity that we're leaving on the table, but I really don't need to see anything more other than this is the size of the problem. And we can talk about how many communities there are available to them. We've got some bullet points that maybe we can incorporate. Generic travel companion apps lack religious connections, filters, and church locators. Yes, I like it. Good bullet point. Spiritual wellness apps aid in staying spiritually rooted, but doesn't offer in-person fellowship abroad. I like that. That's good. No existing solution combines travel, spiritual wellness, in-person fellowship. All right, these bullet points are great. I just don't understand this number. I don't think it works. You can just say that the options are limited and leave your problem statement just super clear and concise in that way. Below, you've got these bullet points that I'm never going to read. I can barely read it right now myself. I'm going to think that a lot of this will go into your competition slide, and that's what I'm going to be looking forward to. But the fact that you've got a summary sentence up top and you're following the format, that works. I'm clear on what this does. It just needs to be cleaned up. Solution. Once again, you're saying a lot here, but let's break it down. HelloFellow is an all-in-one faith-first travel and spiritual wellness mobile app designed exclusively for Christian women. It's redundant. You've already said that. Solo travelers experiencing spiritual isolation through offering a single platform. You already said it's all in one, and you are saying it's a single platform. Again, you don't have to be repeating yourself so much. Find in-person fellowship abroad with other Christian women travelers, connect with local churches while abroad, access to embedded AI spiritual wellness tools. Now you're adding AI, it's AI washing. You don't have to be putting all this in here. And I understand you're throwing everything on there to get investors interested, but you can make it very clear. You can streamline this and make it much more effective as a pitch deck. Eliminating the need for multiple fragmented apps, which save each traveler 48% a year using HelloFellow alone. You're combining too many problems altogether. Let's stop and try to workshop this. If you told me that there are 22.4 million Christian women that travel that want to go and connect with churches abroad while they're traveling and they don't know how to do it and they don't feel safe, that's a good enough problem for me. You can later say they use all these other apps, but there's no actual solution other than going onto Facebook or going online, trying to find that. That's not safe for them. That makes sense. You tell investors that 22.4 million women who have this problem, and that's pretty good. And then you say your solution is we allow women who travel abroad to safely connect with spiritual communities with ratings and travel itineraries using different tools like AI to manage those connections. Or we have a social component to this, allows them to be social, to pick which communities they want to connect with, thus fulfilling what they're seeking spiritually as they travel abroad. That's fundamentally different than being a tool for spiritual wellness. I get the fact that you are solving for spiritual wellness. That is a benefit as you're solving the problem, but don't put all of it together. Just say we've got spiritual wellness features that people can chat and socialize with, but the main problem that you're solving for, your beachhead that investors want to know, is how you are servicing those 22.4 million women, because that's enough of a niche. Spiritual wellness is completely saturated. I'm working with founders right now that are working on all-in-one apps for spiritual wellness, spiritual development, spiritual exploration. If you have a cool app that connects people with spiritual communities abroad, that's going to be a big enough business model as it is. It's going to be hard enough to find all those communities and make sure that you implement and execute it properly. Don't cram all these problems together. Pick one problem, solve it with one single streamlined solution, and then let the investors decide from there. Market size, by the way, I like the left-hand top there when it's super small, and the fact that you are following the format and saying our focus. I really appreciate this summary sentence. Let's read it. Initial focus on the 3.1 million U.S. Christian women, millennial, Gen Z solo travelers, most likely a strong experience, spiritual isolation while abroad, long-term travel, 2 weeks or more. This represents 325.5 million opportunity in the next 18 months post-beta. You don't have to put that in there. So first off, you want to explain that there are 22.4 million travelers. So just put that right in the front. We're going to focus on the 3.1 million women, Gen Z solo, but why? Why do you have the advantage? Why you? Yes, I understand they're most likely to experience spiritual isolation while traveling abroad, but you can say we can reach them. Gen Z solo travelers are more internet connected. They're savvy online. Expand on the why you, what's your benefit and advantage there. And then I like the fact that you put $325.5 million opportunity. So you got here, and this is really convoluted. I'm not understanding this. So quite frankly, I would really take this out and maybe add some other facts. But this statement is strong enough that 3.1 million, and give me some bullet points of why you're targeting them and how that's going to grow into the overall 22.4 million market. I really appreciate the fact that you segmented it from 22.4 million to 3.1. You just haven't communicated in a clear fashion. How it works, once again, a lot to like here. You've got steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. Download and sign up. We don't need this step. Of course, you're going to download and you're going to sign up. You're going to say, first step is a safety screening, after a profile and discover and connect, and then AI Bible chat personal studies. Now, if you're solving the problem for communities, what I want to know is not this. I want to know how communities are going to get connected. That's the number one thing. You've got discover and connect using real location APIs, real time. I understand. But how do I know that where I'm going is safe? If I'm traveling in some country, let's say I'm traveling to Holland, I'm just picking a country, and obviously I'm not the demographic, but let's say I'm a young female traveler and I go to Holland and I'm there, or Iceland, or I'm there for a spiritual experience. How do I know what communities are on there? How do those communities advertise on the app? You haven't answered that question. If your promise is safety, you are going to have to explain on the how it works, how you're making things safe. You see how the unique value proposition must be the focus of how it works. How do you deliver that fairy tale ending? How do you deliver the results, the transformational experience, whatever you're promising to the user? Explain that a lot better. But the fact that you've broken it down into steps, that's great. Eliminate the stuff that people are going to take for granted. This slide is well on its way. Business model. You generate direct-to-consumer annual subscription, $69 per year, 48% lower. We don't need to have that information. Travelers currently spend a spiritual wellness app. Now, if there's a market, this could be an interesting thing. You could say that your focus is on those 3.1 million women because they already have downloaded the other apps. That could be definitely a strategy that explains why that target market is the way that it is. You've got way too much going on here. Future revenue opportunities include mission or volunteer, etc. I don't need to see this right now. I just want to be super clear. You've got all this other stuff, AI, Bible chat. Let's just get rid of this. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to create this sentence. You're going to say, we generate revenue through a direct-to-consumer annual subscription model. And then you're going to have bullet points. You're just going to say $69 a year. That's it. Maybe you can have monthly. That's all you have to do. And that will say enough to the investor that you understand. It's hard enough with multiple business models and streams of revenue. The fact that you've got one is great. I don't need to know 48% lower. I don't need to know this until you get to your competition slide. Go-to-market strategy, how we acquire users. You need a summary sentence. You got lead generation, capture, nurture. You don't need this. Everybody understands that you're going to be doing a funnel. This is taken for granted. This is just basics. You're putting it out there and investors going, yeah, duh, that's what you have to be doing. I need to understand your strategy. So what is the main channel that you are using? This statement doesn't have to be in here. It can be in the traction statement. Let's read this. We've learned our best channels, organic, social, TikTok, organic search, interest, and community forums. So you can say, we're using social media right now. And then you could put bullet points of, 29,000 views, 60 email wait list, etc., in terms of proving that this is working for you. And then you want to put your other channels. You want to say, our next phase, we're going to explore these other channels. You've got all this information here that nobody is going to read. Just put like your other slides were super clear. Just put a summary sentence headline and then put the bullet points and make this slide so much simpler. It's great that you're already out there, which I really appreciate. You're already putting it out there and you're testing. So you got battle tested assumptions in terms of your go-to-market strategy. Investors are going to like that. Competition. This is the slide I want to talk about. You've got competition, all this out here, but here's the thing. You already said people use all these multiple apps and they don't have the community-driven aspect of connecting a community. Strong first mover advantage, I don't believe that. You're repeating all this stuff in here. Again, 69, you already said that. You don't have to put it in there. While millions, and you've got this whole paragraph down here, 1 million Christian women, solo travelers, etc. Don't do that. What you want to do is you want to have a matrix and you want to put all your competitors up at the top and you want to explain which ones do or do not connect you to local communities and how you're different. Then you can explain the cost and you can have a headline that typically women will spend $135 a year across all these competitors. We consolidate it into one for $69.99 a year. That's all you have to say. Now, here's what I'm going to bring up. $135 to $69. You're basically saying we're 50% less. At $135 to $70. Let's talk about this for just one moment. As an investor, I'm thinking a 50% discount is not big enough. I'm thinking to myself, these young women have enough money to travel solo and they're running around the world and they want to connect with spiritual communities. Great. I understand this is a niche and I fully want to validate that. But is saving 50% or roughly $65 worth all the trouble to change solutions, go out there? Is there enough margin out there for you, enough of a market to go out and say, this is going to be a legitimate startup and it's going to get what we need? This is why we look for 10X solutions. If you say that women spend $1,000 on all this traveling around and we can give it all to them for $100, well, that's a no-brainer. Women go, of course, I would buy that. An investor thinks, yes, absolutely, that's a great value proposition. Women are going to do that. This app is going to fly off the shelves. So you want to really understand how some differentiators could help you beyond just always saying $135 to $69 or $70 per year. You want to talk about all the differentiators, how some of these apps are not safe. There's not a safety screening process. You don't know if you're going to go to, and please forgive me using this example, but go end up at a cult where they're full of axe murderers or cannibals, and they basically chop you up and sell your organs after they've eaten pieces of you. I'm being facetious, but literally that's what people are thinking. If you're saying you're going to connect solo female travelers with communities abroad, there has to be that safety angle, and maybe that's going to be worth more than $69 a year. You can say women are willing to pay $500 as they're traveling for this. You haven't gone out and tested. This is what I mean by idea validation. You follow all the right formats and you've got the right progress in terms of direction for your pitch deck, but this business model hasn't been thought through enough. The idea is there, the central concept, problem solution, I dig it. Don't think I'm poo-pooing it. But the execution and can this be a business model all around? That's what I'm missing, and that's what I want you to explore. Here's the founder slide, a lot to like, but the problem is these logos, you're implying that you worked for these companies. Maybe you did. You've got an account manager. You're talking about it. I like your ministry credentials, your experience there. You want to put that up in a summary sentence right at the top. Plan key hires, you do not want to have this, all right? You just want to say, this is how strong I am, and later on, you want to sell the fact that you can go recruit those other people, but don't worry about that right now. These bullet points are great. I'm really going to question these logos and why they're there. Be very careful so that you don't make investors think that you're just trying to embellish and you're trying to put something out there that's just specifically not true. Traction. You've already said this in multiple places, but this is the slide needs to be. In 3 months, HelloFellow has attracted over 60 waitlist subscribers, 618 TikTok followers, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So when you're talking about traction, I want to know the state of the product. I want to know validation in terms of customers, which you're already having. And then I want to know growth metrics, the numbers. So it's not just enough to put total numbers, explain how much you're growing. So if you're saying state of the product, I want to say that you're in idea stage or that you've got the initial social media. We built a social media profile, or we're starting on the social media profiles. We have talked to enough customers to develop 60 waitlist subscribers. How fast is that growing? How much? I really like the fact that you did put 3 months, shows that you're executing and you're out there. And this is a great deck to get in front of friends, family, and associate investors to make them say, yeah, I want to know what you do in the next 3 months. If you're going to make claims for number one search terms, you want to explain what those search terms are, 3 Reddit threads, that's not enough, and showing up in ChatGPT prompts validating real world interest. You have to prove it. I need to see charts. I need to see actual numbers if you're making these claims. Once again, you're repeating all this information. Just have a summary headline sentence. In 3 months, we've been able to launch our social media profiles, validate our idea, and have the bullet points of the different numbers and the growth metrics. And hopefully they're going up and to the right. That's all you have to do. Way too much information here. Just take this all out and put this in the top sentence. But I want to share with you what I really like about this. That in 3 months, you went out and you started going all out on social media. Investors know that development is much easier than distribution right now. So the fact that you're developing it and you're getting it yourself out there, that's really great. You want to show that growth there. You've got momentum and you've got the willingness to go out, get distribution, go out and figure out customer acquisition before you even build a product. I can see a world where you build such a community online and you're talking about it, and maybe you're doing things manually and you're sharing and you're talking to people who are traveling, potential users abroad, and you're on the forums, you're talking with them. Maybe you have a WhatsApp group or a Discord, and you're talking with all of them and you're giving them information, and everybody's rallying around your mission to help you build the app. This could be potential for crowdfunding. There's lots of reward-based crowdfunding, or you can do equity crowdfunding and have your users become the investors. There's a lot of potential there, especially with tight-knit communities such as spiritual communities. I really like the way that you're going about it. Even though you haven't built anything, you're still looking for technical help, and a lot of other investors or fellow founders might think, well, you're not really doing it. I think that's the way to go. And that's why I'm on YouTube. And I always tell founders, build the distribution networks first, which you are doing. So I just want to encourage you in that regard. Here's the last slide. You're raising 200 to 500K. Pick a number. Do not put a range. Investors will think that you don't know how to do your financials. In pre-seed funding to reach product market fit, you're not going to try to reach product market fit. You're not going to get that in 18 months. Just say we're raising 500K to build and launch our MVP in 18 months. That's all you have to do. You can say to continue to grow our community to 3,000 or 10,000 followers. You could add that in and then have the use of funds. Get rid of the milestones. You do not need these milestones. Milestones are great once the investor says, all right, I need to see due diligence. If I give you that 500K, what would you do with it? What specifically are the technology milestones? On top of which, you don't know what your milestones are because you're missing key pieces to your team. So just be very straightforward in saying, we're going to hire these people and start to build out and continue to validate our market and launch within 18 months. So take this out, but the rest is getting there, refine everything that you've got. Is this a pitch deck that's going to attract institutional capital like a micro VC or a professional angel? No, you're not there yet. However, is it enough to get their interest and start a relationship? I think you're definitely there, especially with people inside the church. I'm part of a church community, and I know a lot of investors, and we're raising money for buildings and nonprofit organizations, different initiatives to try and help our community. So I know that Christians have money and they're investment minded and they're willing to put money into this type of stuff. And I just know from personal experience. That's why I'm personally motivated to try and help a startup like this one. You're just not there yet, but you should keep going. Keep building that community. Talk to as many people in your circles as possible. You clearly have the domain expertise. You clearly have founder market fit. Start building and developing that out, and you should be okay. Keep me posted. Let me know how it goes. I'm wishing you all the best. As promised, for those of you founders out there, if you want to submit your pitch deck, leave a comment, but you have to put down what you are building. We need to understand because we have a lineup. As you can see, these pitch deck reviews are taking longer to come out because we're sorting through them all. And we want to make sure that we're doing the right reviews that are educational for everybody. And that's the reason I like to see what I'm reviewing first. And we're going to make you jump through a few hoops to just make sure that we're doing right by you and we're making this the best experience as possible for everybody involved. Once you leave your comment, I'll let you know, give you some more instructions. I appreciate everybody being patient with this. Let me know what you think about this. Comments are appreciated. Encourage these founders out there. And once again, thanks for hanging out with me in these pitch deck critiques and reviews. I'm going to put other videos on the screen. That was a monster episode with 4 pitch decks. If you made it all the way this far, I totally appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video.